Do you like to binge watch TV? Did you know you could binge listen to podcasts? Head over to electronicmediacollective.com, where they have podcasts for days. You like podcasts about wrestling? They have that. Do you like podcasts about TV and film? They have that. Do you like podcasts about horror? EMC has that too. Do you like comedy? Do you like books? Guess what? They've got you covered. Head over to electronicmediacollective.com. Pick your favorite podcast today.
Hey, this is Brian Krause from Charmed and Sleepwalkers, and you are listening to Moose's Monster Mash.
You're listening to Moose's Monster Mash.
Welcome, Horror Hounds, to another all-new episode of Moose's Monster Mash. I'm your host, Moose, and this isn't just another episode. This is an episode a year in the making. That's right. This is the year in review. That means it is the return of our fan favorite guests, the Growlix Growler himself, Randal Silvey, and the guest from Beyond the Grave, our most return guest, Billy Peck. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Good. Yeah, if I'm here, it's definitely not just another episode. Come on.
It's very special. Very special, very evil.
Welcome to a very special episode of Moose's Monster Mash.
It's the one time of the year I pull you out of your hibernation and say, come, join us.
Join us.
I appreciate it. I need to get back on that circuit. I've been too, antisocial. I need to get back on some shows, shake some hands, shake some babies.
Well,
sorry, bad joke.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily shake the babies in public, but if that's your gimmick, I mean, you do you. Just don't record it.
Thank you for being so accepting of my ways.
Full disclosure, there are no babies in Randy's presence.
I have no babies. For some reason. They don't come around.
I think it's self-explanatory. But
this was a terrible way to introduce myself on your episode. Wow.
I think they understand the growler part now. We don't like babies and we don't like... Anyway, so, he does like kittens though, folks. So, he's not all bad. Our year in review. 2022 was a banner year, I'd say, for horror. I mean, when we sat down last year, we came up with a pretty solid list of what we were happy to, what we were expecting to see, what we were, really looking forward to seeing rather. And, going into our year in review, I really want to start with those and see, did they, meet our expectations? Did they exceed our expectations? Where they kind of fell on the radar of everything, and more or less, were they worth the wait? And to start it off, I want to start with Prey. The let's just call it the antique predator, if you will. It's probably one of it came out as one of the more controversial predators in fan reviews, but personally I liked it because it was just this raw, just this pure raw movie, and I loved it. What'd you guys think?
I don't think it's a perfect movie, of course, but that's a high bar, right? But I liked it a lot. Honestly, I was really thrown by this whole exclusively released on Hulu initially, but the premise is exactly what I always thought they should do for a Predator sequel. Because after the second one, which was, whatever, kind of a mixed bag, they just kind of got more convoluted and complicated with the premise. And I'm like, no, you keep it simple. It's a hunter that comes every, couple hundred years and you've basically got an action slasher sci-fi movie. That's what the first one was, and this, I think, was super smart to take that idea. Let's jump back several, 100 years or whatever it was, and let's do another one. Like, that's, I don't know. It's, in the case of Predator, I think it benefits it to keep it simple, and they did, and there was definitely some cool stuff in it. I liked it a lot.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I always get a little flack from, I'm a Predator fan, but, I'm not, huge into this, and, I do really enjoy the first one. I'm not the biggest fan of the second, and I think a big thing for me, I don't really care to see the Predator in, city limits. So the second one does that, the second AVP does that. I like seeing it in its, what to me feels like that natural element of the first one of, it's in the jungle, it's a predator, it's looking for its prey, it's fighting, these different types of and now I don't know the right word to put it, but it's different forms of competition, and that's why I personally really like Predators, where it's essentially like doing a training ground of all these different types of warriors, and that's what we get with this sequel, or a prequel, I should say, with Prey. It's that early version, like you said, Paul, or Lucio. It's that antique version. It's that early version that is just finding its bearings. Evolution and learning and all of that is what gets us to the Predator we know. From say current times. We get to see that early version of a Predator who is going against the Native Americans, who are also early versions of ourselves with little weaponry or experience and all of that. So I thought it was a really cool way to showcase the Predator, and I think it's the way that most Predator fans, if they let go of that, it was kind of controversial with the reviews. Let's just say what it is. A lot of people just say, a woman, was able.
Yeah.
It's woke
yeah.
Predator, and whatever. Who cares?
Right.
At its basis, this is really what Predator is. I think, in my viewpoint of what the Predator is supposed to, and like you said, Randy, at a certain point, it starts to kind of become a little too convoluted, or trying to change things up too much. Let's throw them in the city. The last one to come out was The Predator. Where that this is from another planet or whatever, but now we're seeing it in battle in spaceships and all that stuff. It's
there's giant predators.
It's too much.
It just didn't seem necessary to me. Yeah.
So again, I think scaling it back, putting it in its natural element, which is the jungle, and being able to fight, a worthy adversary of that time period was really cool.
One criticism I have is I wasn't wild about the design of the Predator's face specifically in this one, but he did fist fight a bear, and that was pretty amazing. So, evens out.
So what I'm gathering is nobody wants to see Predator takes Manhattan.
I don't hate the city idea, because
that's a personal preference. That's just me.
Well, you're still just taking the Predator and putting it in a different setting, and that's fine for me. I like that idea. I think the second one just has issues with it being an early 90s action movie, so there's some of that, cheesy.
I don't disagree.
Right.
And it's funny, and again, it's just personal preference, and I don't even think that it's it was ever a conscious thing, but I watch all of these Predator movies, and, say what you will about Alien vs. Predator, but my least favorite out of all of them happens to be the second one, AVP2, and The Predator, and they all largely take place in the city.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
I also just don't necessarily think they're the best made movie. Predator 2 isn't really that poorly made. It's just, whatever.
I'm of the opinion the first one is kind of a masterpiece. Like it's like bona fide classic in my mind.
Sure.
So, but I'm not beyond, so Prey does not definitely hit that level, but I think it's a worthy prequel. It's a worthy follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one of the best talking points to come out of Prey is people wanting to see Predator dropped off in different eras in history, primarily feudal Japan.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm down.
I mean, Predator going up against
past.
a full-blown samurai, I think would be an epic movie. It just
Yes. Yeah, and that type of thing again is teased in Predators. There is that Yakuza member that he squares off against, and the Predator essentially puts down his weapon, and they just have a sword.
Yeah.
And so seeing a whole movie of where they learned those tactics would be cool.
Oh yeah. Well,
a lot of Predator talk.
Oh, 100%.
By the way, I'm sorry, Paul, Moose, before we move on, did either of you guys watch the Comanche dubbed version out of curiosity?
Oh, I heard that they did that. I did not watch it.
I did. I mean, I guess it added authenticity. It is still, it was dubbed, so it was, I don't think it originally recorded in Comanche, which is weird, but that's a studio issue. Apparently the script called for it, but, cool that they did that. That's the version I watched. It didn't detract anything, obviously, so.
Sure. Neat idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we started in the past. Let's stay in the past a little bit longer, and let's talk about another one of our anticipated movies, and that was The Northman. And now we're into some pretty hardcore Viking mythology. It was brutal, but brutal in a good way. And
sure.
I feel I had to preface because as soon as it came out of my mouth, it was brutal. It's oh no, I don't mean oh it sucked. No, I mean it was badass.
Right.
It 100 it portrays when you picture Vikings, that's what you imagine.
Well, it should be.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people within, and I use this very loose in big old quotes, Viking culture.
I was going to say the Viking community.
And I'm watching it and knowing a lot of those people, I go, oh no, this is going to be too out there for them. They're not going to be able to handle what they're about to see because director and writer, Ari Aster, he did this, right? Or was it Robert?
No. It was Robert Eggers.
Robert Eggers, sorry.
Yep.
Those two are very parallel for me.
Right, that makes sense.
Robert Eggers is very
true to form.
Yeah, period. It's accurate. He does a lot of research. Uses a lot of one of the biggest examples of when he witch. A lot of the dialogue was taken from actual diaries and things of that nature from those time periods, and and that's just keeping it very simple. The amount of research and effort that he puts into making this stuff as accurate as possible is pretty high up there. So anyway, to me, watching this, I don't know that I would say it's my favorite of his movies, but I think he did a pretty cool job with it, and it's bizarre, it's brutal, it's very violent, it's out there. I think it's very close to a lot of what Viking culture was. There's kind of my.
I'm curious on. Okay, so I was super excited because, yeah, Robert Eggers, The Witch, The Lighthouse, he's got Nosferatu coming up, which I'm very excited about. I have not watched this yet, and part of the reason was, this is maybe him not doing himself any favors. I remember it came out, and there was, I don't know if he said it somewhere, but there was complained about studio interference, which with a director like him, I'm like, okay, I totally see how that would happen. So I was kind of like, we'll see. But I still do want to watch it. I have not.
So I do have an opinion on that for sure.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of goes along with anybody that, this is his third movie in. And each one does get a little bit bigger, right? Little bit more money, little bit more studio involvement. Not in like a bad way, but it does feel a little more polished. It does feel a little more big or epic. Kind of more on a studio standpoint. So while it still is, again, like, it's bizarre. Like I said, it's very violent, it's graphic, it touches on a lot of stuff that you would not see in a standard Hollywood movie.
Right.
But in saying that, yeah, it does feel like there's a little bit more studio in it.
Well, I've since read interviews with him where it sounds like he either kind of came around on it or, I don't know, backpedaled a little bit in that, like, there was definitely more cut than he had wanted, but he was okay with it. But yeah, I think when it first came out, you really touched on it, is bigger project, and he had said he was not a fan of doing the bigger projects. He wanted to go back to smaller budgets, less interference, which I mean, he's kind of a hardcore auteur type. You can just tell by his films.
Yes.
My big question on this, though, is because this is something we were uncertain about, is with his name attached, and also the way I think their early trailers portrayed it, it seemed like it had a horror vibe. Does it have would you classify it as horror? I know, like, his stuff, I mean, the witch definitely is, but, like, The Lighthouse, I would put in horror, even though, like, it's just kind of...
I'd kind of say the same with this. Okay. I mean, there's certainly...
It falls under the supernatural realm.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to say supernatural to a certain degree. And the way that it kind of toes the line of, like, is it supernatural? Like, is that stuff, like, really happening? Or is it, maybe a mindset or certain cases hallucinogenic? Or, so it does touch on a horror aspect.
I say it definitely toes that line of supernatural slasher. Just based on, I'd say the amount of gore. It's... there's supernatural elements and slasher elements that drop this squarely just like right on that line where it could be horror, it could be like action thriller, but it definitely fits in both sides. Yeah. And, touching back on the studio interference and, the more polished movie, I think both of those go with part of why, I was really interested in this. And now, Randy, you said you haven't watched this yet, right?
Correct. I have not watched it yet.
So part of why I was really interested in it is the, history nerd in me. Skarsgård plays Amleth, who the story of Amleth is the direct inspiration for Hamlet. So studio was potentially looking at this as, we can do Hamlet without doing Hamlet, which is, I mean, arguably one of Shakespeare's biggest plays. And, I mean, you watch it, it plays out like Hamlet, but it's not Hamlet. So, and I think that's where they were looking at it from their end. And that's why it was, bigger budget, more, a more polished movie, because it does have that, history behind it. So
interesting. Okay.
Let's shoot over to something a little more campy, and something that was probably the most debated movie since its announcement, and that is Rob Zombie's take on the Munsters. Now, as a fan of the Munsters, I've said it on many episodes, don't judge it until you watch it. I watched it, and I think you
And
nailed it.
Okay, I was gonna say, and are you judging it now? Okay.
I think he nailed the spirit of the Munsters. I mean, it's exactly that, that campy, vibe of just this family friendly universal horror family. It's what the Munsters is. It's comedy horror. Like it, and not like it's goofy comedy. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be that, and he nailed it.
Yeah, it definitely had that divisive, crowd on both ends. You had the Munsters purists who were like, "Oh, Rob Zombie's just gonna make it white trash and full of cuss words and this and that," and then you have the Rob Zombie fans who were like, "Oh, I thought he was gonna make it all, hardcore and and so you have both camps not giving it a chance."
Right.
I will say that a lot, and not every, but a lot of the Munsters purists ended up going into it and ended up going like, oh, so he did just make a Munster movie. Okay. As a big fan of both, I did enjoy it. Yeah, there's certainly, it's Rob's first real time into like doing a straight comedy type thing. I think as a big fan of Rob Zombie, I do think that some people have a pretty good judgment on him that he could use a writer to like polish or kind of rewrite his scripts a bit. And I think this is a movie that could have maybe used that some. But overall, I enjoyed it.
I have not watched it, and I'm not opposed to watching it. Is the production better than that first trailer alludes to? Because I remember that first trailer is so rough. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or maybe the only trailer?
Yeah, I mean,
and I get that it's gonna kind of, it's Munsters, it's colorful, it's campy. Plus, he like Rob Zombie used to be was it art designer, set decorator, or something for like P. Herman's Playhouse. So
set designs are incredible.
Okay. I just remember something about that first trailer beyond low budget, and I was really surprised at just kind of how shoestring it felt. So I was just wondering, like, how the production on it itself was.
So I have many opinions on trailers.
Sure. I mean, and I will concede that it's not fair to judge a movie. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a movie by the trailer.
And I think the reason why I bring that up and to get to your point, Randy, is it's difficult to judge early versions of trailers.
Right.
So, like, one of the best examples I can use is, like, Avengers Infinity War. Very first trailer comes out, and the comparison, Thanos, in what he looks like in that very first trailer versus what he looks like in the movie are different. In the movie, his face is, like, incredibly textured. Like, you can see, like, every wrinkle, like, hair, follicle, like, all this stuff. You don't see that in the first trailer. It looks fine, but it looks CG. All those months later, after it's been able to continue being worked on, there is a big difference in the quality of how that looks. So with this, the biggest complaint that I heard was, like, how they felt like the voiceover, like the narration in the trailer seemed like really odd, really wonky. And that's not how the moves played out.
Right.
And yeah, there's gonna be some stuff that looks cheap, but that's on purpose.
Yeah.
It is still supposed to look like a set that came out in the 60s or whatever. So it is going to still have like kind of a look, but no, I think if there's anything that people are going to dislike, it's character portrayals or anything like that. If overall, to me, I think if someone has an issue with set design and all that, like they may not quite get. I'm not saying that that's not what that's what you were doing or anything.
No, yeah.
The production is there. It's all authentic. It looks good.
Okay, I think you really hit on with like, and it's such a like. Of course, this shouldn't necessarily reflect on the movie, but the wonkiness of the voiceover in the trailer. The trailer felt amateurish in a way, like just in its construction. That it's like, well, either Rob Zombie cut it together himself and was like, no, I'm going to do it, or the studio just had no confidence in the project, and they're like, we're not going to throw any. That's what it read like to me. We're not going to throw any money at it. Which again, I mean, it almost touches back on the Northman. Like, I don't. What the studio thinks is going to be a hit, like it doesn't. That doesn't really concern me. Like, of course, they kind of undermine themselves sometimes, but
sure,
I was curious about it. And then the trailer kind of turned me off of it. So, like I said, I will watch it, but that is one of the things. I guess I'm just, this and the last movie justifying why I haven't watched it yet. Like, both movies I do want to, but like, there's just little reasons why I put it off.
I think more so with the Munsters than the Northmen. There's certainly, there's certainly reasons for people to not, I totally get it. One of my biggest things, pretty universally, people think that Daniel Roebuck did an amazing job as Grandpa Munster.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Jeff Daniel Phillips played Herman Munster, and Moon Zombie played Lily Munster, and I know that there's a lot of people who just don't care for Sherry Moon Zombie in general. There's a lot of people that, and myself included, very much felt like, oh wow, she actually did a really good job capturing Lily Munster. And I think Jeff Daniel Phillips did a pretty good job capturing Herman Munster, but him overall, his voice was so different. And that is a little jarring. I did end up loving his portrayal, but his voice is so different. And, I kind of ask myself this too, well, would I rather have a horrible impersonation or someone that's kind of just doing their own thing and the character is still Herman, but the voice is different? So, I can see where people be like, no, this doesn't work for me. And I think out of all the characterization, the voice work, all that, his is definitely the most could be the hardest for people to latch onto.
Well,
and then go ahead.
I will say the benefit of where Zombie put his characters is we can have completely different versions of their portrayals because they are younger versions of the character.
Sure.
So, where in the show you see essentially a more refined, if you will, Lily Munster and, a kookier grandpa.
Sure.
And, Herman with, the voice we all know and love. Those are all changes that come with age.
Sure.
So it definitely works out that this is essentially, an origin story, not necessarily an origin story, but a prequel to the show.
Yeah.
So we get the younger versions of them finding themselves, and before we knew them in the TV series.
Yeah.
Which hasn't really been explored too much. So we don't know
what
they were
like. The one movie, but
yeah,
it's yep.
So
and the other thing too is Rob did want to do a black and white movie, and the studio was like, I don't know about that. So he's like, fine. In his opinion, just doing a colorized version would almost fall flat, so he oversaturated everything. The colors are very bright and cartoon. So he's like, if I'm going to do this, like, I'm going in the complete opposite direction of black and white. And I could see where that could be off-putting to some. So I like, not just a shill or fanboy, like, I do understand where some dislikes could come from.
Well, and with how bright and colorful it is, I think it'd be really easy to do a black and white release, and it'd still work out. But
Maybe.
we'll see. Something that we'll talk about later proves that you can do a black and white movie, and it'll still do very well.
Yep.
But let's talk about another mixed bag, and that was Netflix's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ah.
The beloved.
Yeah.
The beloved Texas. Everyone loved this one. The internet certainly.
Oh yeah, the internet couldn't get enough
go
of
ape
it.
over this.
It's another I saw. I guess it goes this way. Both sides. It's got its fans. It's got its detract. So.
It's another one that, and this is, I just had this conversation a couple weeks ago. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It's kind of right in the middle. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not the same boat.
End of the day, that's kind of where you want to be with a movie, I guess. You want to enjoy a movie.
Yeah.
And it had enough for me to enjoy it. I've rewatched it a couple times. It's not something that I'm going to rewatch on a regular basis, but it's a solid movie. It's a massacre. It takes place in Texas with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right there in the title. You get what it's as advertised.
I didn't loathe it as much as some of the internet did, and yeah, it was one of those cases where
Then it's a win.
A lot of people were very unhappy, and then a lot of people that were okay with it took very strong stances. So it was a thing people like to fight over.
Oh yeah.
I think the production, like visually, and it's kind of amazing how much, like, if you kind of look into the behind the scenes stuff of it, is like there was so much trouble with the production, but from a like what actually got on screen, it looks amazing. I think it's a very, like, it's well shot. It's a very slick looking movie. There's some super, like, the bus sequence, even as kind of silly as, like, you're gonna get canceled, bro, is like that. That's kind of awesome, right?
It was one of my favorite scenes. I'm not gonna lie.
The gore, like, there's some CG gore. That's whatever. That's fine. But like the gore was on point. It was pretty.
I mean, it's maybe the most violent Texas Chainsaw movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is saying a lot.
So I think it's very well made. I think the script sucks. I think the script sucks hard. But so that's where it really fails for me, is that, and whatever, it's a slasher. Like, you don't have to love the characters, but I thought the characters were not great. The setup was kind of strange with Leatherface, and I get that Leatherface he's the character everyone knows. You have to have a Leatherface, but it's like, but there are other characters too. Like, where's the Sawyers? Like, I feel like ignores what part of what makes the better Chainsaw movies work, and also copping a Halloween 2018 Laurie Strode thing was a terrible decision in my opinion.
So actually, and my opinion on all that, because that was a big. Let me take a couple steps back. So you mentioned, the script and I agree. Like, the movie thought it was more clever than it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I think it was on the right track of, like, where it was supposed to go. And the Laurie Strode thing, and a lot of people, like, got upset with it, was like, oh, they brought Sally back. They brought this legacy character back just to, like, just get off, like, right away. And that was kind of like, the big thing to me was that it was showing that, like, because I know I'm kind of, stuttering over all of this. She says something like, "You don't remember me," or something like that, and then just like gets killed. And like that's the whole point. Like, fuck no, he doesn't remember who you are.
Right.
Like, who you are does not matter. Nothing matters to him other than family. And that's like how like, cause aren't they on like some sort of transport bus or something at the beginning, or what? What am I thinking?
It's the setup is just the
When they all get into the
rich
house,
influence.
yeah, like
Right.
they're not. He's not bothered by anybody. He doesn't like. He's not trying to kill anyone. He doesn't care. It's not until they
His, like, caretaker dies.
and then that's the Saw's family. That's the
Yep.
whole
Yeah.
point of that they've beaten into our heads for 40 years. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is all about family.
Right.
Leatherface does not care about you. He is not bothered by you. He doesn't care. You got away from him 40 years ago. If you're black, if you're gay, if you're any of this stuff, and
You
this
could
is where
piss in his Cheerios.
this is where the script thought it was more clever than it really was. Like, it's including all this stuff, and I get it. It all makes sense to me.
Right.
The delivery of isn't the
Yes.
greatest.
Yeah, I think that could be done, right? And I totally agree with you. And I even like that idea of like she's kind of course been obsessed with this,
Yes.
and then just to be crushed with like the fact that he doesn't even remember her, and like of course, as you said, of course he doesn't. Why would he? I think doing the whole legacy character that's fine, but it just felt so kind of hollow and like ham-fisted and just kind of shoved in there.
Sure.
Conceptually, not terrible, but like she spends most of the movie just like going there and then looking at pictures of the cast from the original movie to remind you who she is. It's like, you don't need to do that 3 times. We get it.
Right.
We get it.
Concept. Pretty good, I think.
Right.
The delivery.
I even like that they killed her off. Even her death was a little hammy. Like, you took a chainsaw through your torso. Like, I gonna lay there and like deliver a shotgun to this chick who's not gonna like utilize it well anyway. But I even like that they killed her off. That's kind of a thing that in my mind separates Texas Chainsaw from Halloween. If you're gonna do legacy character, Halloween like kind of gets hung up on it for better or worse. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But Texas Chainsaw, if they're gonna do that, they're then going to brutalize that legacy character and knock him off because that's Texas Chainsaw. It's kind of, it's gritty, it's dirty, it's greasy. That's how it does.
100%. Now, moving into a little bit more polished one. Let's talk about Nope.
Akira slide. That's all I got to say. Okay, so do you know what the Akira slide is? It's something that gets replicated a lot in animation.
Oh, no.
Okay. It doesn't matter. For those who know, there's an Akira slide in this movie, and Jordan Peele is super excited to be able to do it. It's the shot of the motorcycle sliding sideways away from the camera. It's kind of a famous shot from the anime Akira, and you see it used in animation a lot, but he got to do it in live action. He was super excited. It's just, I guess. Moving on. Nope.
Now, this goes back to, Randy, you were talking about the Munsters trailer. When I saw the second trailer for Nope, I was a little annoyed that they kind of gave it all away. Because like the first trailer, it was still mysterious or something in the sky. You're like, oh, cool, what is it? Second trailer dropped, you're like, oh, it's aliens. Well, shit. You watch the movie, okay, it's aliens, but holy shit, is it more than that? And, which is, again, why don't hang your hat on the trailer. But no, it was a very well laid out movie. And aside from the aliens, it felt very real. I mean, it was 100% this is how you would react in this situation. And it was fantastic.
Jordan Peele knows how to like construct great sequences. I mean, he's clearly like a film nerd, right? Like, he knows how to put together good sequences. He's got good taste. This And Get Out was great, but this might be my favorite of his movies so far.
Nice.
And it's interesting talking to like Melanie, my girlfriend and co-host on Grog's podcast. I think she'd probably argue that it's not enough of a horror movie, but I feel like it's a horror movie for the big first chunk, and then once you get like the full reveal, it goes like Western adventure, which is such a weird turn to take in the third act, but that's kind of where it goes. The only kind of thing that bums me out a little bit about this movie is I know there was a ton of stuff, like there's a whole subplot tying to, I can't remember his name, I'm going to call him Glenn from Walking Dead.
Oh, sure.
Tying to his backstory, which also is great, although if you think about it, that whole thing, like, it's super cool, gives the movie a lot of tone, just that whole, like, backstory and setup. But if you think about it, it's kind of super disjointed from the rest of the movie. Like, it doesn't, in a way, make sense. But apparently there's a whole bunch of stuff from that cut, and so I kind of wish that was there. He said he's going to take that story and maybe hold that back and use it in something else, but otherwise, yeah, I thought it was super cool. I thought it was good.
I hope so, because I want to see more about the murdering chimp.
Right. Well, there was this whole character who's in, like, I kind of fell down a rabbit hole one night about it, who's in the trailer, like an early trailer, that's never in the movie, and apparently he's like, they had this whole, like, stalker plot line with the girl from the show, who you see later, who had her face ripped off by a chimp. You see her later at the rodeo. There's this whole subplot about that. So I don't know if that would have made it feel more disjointed or tied it better together, but, you know, either way.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually know any of that. Yeah, no, another movie, I mean, look, a lot of this stuff, you know, if you heard me on here before, I typically lean more towards the positive of things. I enjoy a lot of things. And yeah, this is another one that I enjoyed. I think Jordan Peele is very creative. He offers a fresh voice to the genre, you know, coming from obvious fan background, but, you know, his comedic background and all that stuff, just, I think it all just, it's a nice mixture of things that adds to, you know, new creations that we get out of him. And, you know, I can't, you know, this is a preference thing, and I get it also. Like, I suppose maybe, like, I didn't love that, like, the alien aircraft that actually was just the alien, I guess, was like a giant hot air balloon, you know, but, like, I guess it represents, I don't remember, some type of fish or flower or some shit that I don't remember. Like, you know, it's an allegory for something, and, you know, I don't remember it. But, you know, and I didn't hate, you know, the way that it was either, but it's like, oh, okay, so that's what it is, huh?
The main thing I didn't like about the design of that thing is the perfect square mouth. There's no organic things that make perfect squares, and I was like, that's a weird choice, man. I mean, I guess it's an interesting visual, but it's such a weird choice.
Sure. But it didn't take me out of the movie or anything, or like, oh, well, that thing looks stupid, this movie sucks. Because I know people that have felt that way too, like, right. Oh, it's really cool, oh, wait, oh, that's it? Well, screw this whole movie then, I guess.
To briefly touch on current events, some people on the internet have been commenting that Peele predicted the spy balloons.
Ah. Oh, okay, of course.
It's like,
Not to disparage M. Night Shyamalan, but something about this movie feels like where I thought Shyamalan's career would go, because it's got that, especially the earlier scenes with, like, the quarters and the keys and stuff raining down, like, it's got this, like, really kind of this tone of, like, what these weird scenarios that make sense later, but really kind of sets a mood that I feel like Shyamalan was really good at in some is really good at in some of his films, but I feel like Peele's such a much more stronger writer.
Peele can stick the ending better.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those two team up.
Man, Shyamalan, and he gets a lot of slack, and I think some of it's deserved.
Sure.
But I feel like he just needs a writer or co-writer or somebody to like.
It's the Rob Zombie thing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Great directors, but man, they need somebody to help them polish those scripts.
And they're right. And same thing with zombies. Same thing with Shyamalan. Like, I don't know necessarily, and this actually does equate some to Shyamalan. I don't necessarily think that I would love to see them direct somebody else's script. Because I think they have incredibly unique voices and visions. They need to write their scripts. And again, have somebody then kind of, pick
somebody
up the
they'll
pieces.
listen to that also has like a good sense about what their voice is, but also like maybe what their weaknesses are.
Yeah, because look, like The Last Airbender or the Will Smith Earth, whatever that movie was called, like those are not M. Night Shyamalan scripts. Those are just movies that he just directed, and obviously, or After Earth it was called. Not strong movies from him. The Happening, not a strong movie from him, and that was one of his, Lady in the Water, not very strong, but like, Shyamalan is still very like, I know this actually, this will probably lead towards what we're looking forward to for 2023 movies. So it can be touched back then, but Shyamalan, I think, was going up with those budgets, more studio involvement, all of that was not really helping his case much.
Right.
Because you look at those first 3, 4-ish movies, you're like, oh, okay. But then it starts to get a little more, the stakes are bigger, the ideas are bigger, the budgets are bigger. Not quite working out. He's scaled back again. His last several movies have done pretty well.
Right.
So, you learn from your mistake.
And, to wrap it back around to Nope, it's just like and why it makes me think of Shyamalan is like great cinematography. So they're teamed up with great cinematographers, really well shot, and just interesting ideas, and knows how to craft intriguing.
Yeah.
That kind of unbreakable is amazing, and I love just like even how that movie opens with the woman giving birth, and there's like the camera that goes between like there's multiple mirrors, and it just like it's all one take, but it's just like changing angles by pointing at this mirror and this mirror, and then at the doctor or whoever coming, like that kind of thing. It's just like it's interesting way to shoot the scene that makes you go, okay, I want to see more. What's going on? This is super cool. And Jordan Peele has a really good sense of that. But I feel like he definitely has a different sensibility when it comes to story. But in construction, it's just like that kind of quality, and that really, I don't know. So far with him, Us was awesome, but like the whole concept required knowledge that I did not have about this 80s, Hands Across America thing. So I was so kind of lost on that side of that aspect of the movie. But like, yeah, he definitely does have a unique voice to like really good execution, super interesting ideas. So anyway, on Nope. I'm sure I'm the first one to say that ever.
I think you are.
Okay, cool.
And the last one that I want to talk about on our anticipated list has started Ty West's breakout run for these 2 years, and that's X. And now this is a movie where breaking one of the fundamental horror tropes could have saved lives. Sex could have saved lives in this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah.
All the woman wanted was a little nookie.
It's true.
You're right, because, it's almost set up like, well, sex is bad, they're going to make a porno, and that's why everyone dies, but it's not. It's a lack of sex.
Yeah, it was just a very horny old lady who, now granted, I probably wouldn't do it either. Actually, I know I wouldn't. I have notes.
Come on, someone, take one for the team, save our lives. She's not so bad.
I'm getting fed to the gator.
She kind of looks like me a goth, come on.
if Mia Goth was in the water for like a month.
Super prude.
But no, I mean, it was, I love the movie. I mean, the kills were great, and the concept was amazing. You know, it had that, like, when you first start watching it, it kind of feels like a almost a mockumentary of they're going to make Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
And then it turns into, oh, we're gonna make a porno. So it was, so I think I kept referring to it as Zack and Miri Make Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's just a fun mix between porn and horror, and it's not, over engrossed in porn, but there's some, really eerie scenes, definitely some creepy scenes, and, like I just said, the kills are just good. They're good, solid horror kills. They're nothing over the top, nothing, that has to really reinvent the wheel. I mean, this is 70s horror just right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to sum it up.
I stylistically, he nailed it, even to the point where he did the whole, like, and I hate it, that those transitions where it's just, like, edits from the next scene to this scene to the next scene to this scene, just, like, quick little, like, cuts back and forth. And I think it even starts doing that after the one guy who's kind of, like, the slightly douchey arts or film student type guy who they've got shooting the thing mentions, like, these art house style transitions, but that's a very 60s kind of into 70s thing that movies would do sometimes. It makes me think of, I feel like Easy Rider did it.
Sure.
But, I mean, it's not new to see a movie that emulates the look of, like, a 70s grindhouse horror thing. I mean, we mentioned Rob Zombie.
Well, and Ty West he's very much been that type of filmmaker for a long time.
Right. But I think it nails it fairly. I think it utilizes that aesthetic well.
Yes. Agreed. Yep.
Also, something that popped in my head when Moose was talking was it does kind of, so it's got the porn aspect, but it does approach that interestingly in that it's kind of an examination of not porn itself, but just like different people, the people's involved in it, like their viewpoint, and you've got different opinions. Like the obvious one is I mentioned the film student type guy who's totally okay with it until his girlfriend is like, hey. And I think some people kind of give that character, I kind of get why he'd be upset, right? Because maybe not to suddenly like start judging them, but like I feel like as a couple, that's maybe a thing you should discuss first to see if it causes problems. But anyway, it's a deeper psychological thing. I think a lot of people think, oh no, it's fine. Like it's just sex. Like he's like justifying how it's okay. Like you said, until it actually happens to him, and he can't handle it, and he loses. Yeah, I feel like, it's hard to. It almost feels like the movie plays him as a hypocrite, and he is being a hypocrite. But I don't feel like it's a total. I think it. Yeah, and I don't think he's trying to be a hypocrite or like it's not like painted like a negative hypocrisy. Like it's that's a character study.
Yeah.
I find it. I'm glad, Moose, that we've got this in the anticipated list, and I guess that's the quick recap. But I still not been able to see Pearl. Oh, you haven't? No. I mean, you guys can talk about it if you've watched it, by all means. I liked this a lot, and I feel like this would hold someone's attention more than Pearl, but I kind of like Pearl way better. Like, it's just got, like, these hooks, and this is good, but Pearl just seems more unique, I guess I should say. That's maybe a better way to put it.
Well, and saying with that, let's give the, klaxon warning of, hey, that was our anticipated list, and now we're going to dive into the 2022 hits, and yeah, I definitely want to start with Pearl, but there's probably going to be spoilers. I'm not listing off all the movies, so you can tune out if you want.
It's a review episode. It's a year in review episode. It's going to
There's
be full of
spoilers.
spoilers.
So, heads up, it's on you. But
Yeah, if we start talking about a movie you don't want to hear spoilers for, then
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
tune out for a bit.
A movie will be said, the title will be said, and if you're like, "Ooh, I haven't watched that," skip
We're just gonna
forward
start
like
with
2
this-
minutes.
We're going to start with the spoiler and then tell you what movie it is. Just the first one.
it's like Jeopardy. We'll give you the answer. You have to ask us a question.
Right.
But Pearl. Oh, man. I mean, I didn't realize that they were going to, it was going to be both of them in the same year. So.
It's crazy. It's crazy that he did.
Yeah.
And I had heard that Pearl, he sent, I don't know how much truth there is. After having seen it, I don't think this is totally accurate, but he had secretly filmed this whole other movie while making X. But I kind of feel like it's a smaller cast, but I kind of feel like Pearl would have required more in production. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, not seeing it, I don't know any of that. I believe it was while they started working on X, because they did it in, I think, New Zealand. As they're working on that, and that main actress, that's Mia Goth or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Really enjoying how, they worked together, this, that, blah, 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 whatever, that he started concocting this idea for Pearl as X was going. And then he essentially extended their time there.
Okay.
So,
But yeah, I mean.
not necessarily filmed while X was filming, but
Definitely worked on.
shortly after.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or changes much,
But yeah, Pearl definitely shows us the change in the character of Pearl from this, kind of shy farm girl, deranged, sex-crazed murderer, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Well, I kind of feel like the deranged was there. It's a super interesting character study.
Yeah.
It's unless this is why I say I think, and I could be wrong. I could be missing the mark, but I feel like a general audience or just kind of like your basic horror audience would be more entertained by X because it's more typical slasher.
Yeah.
Whereas this is straight up a character study.
I say this is more psychological.
And I feel like there's not as much that happens in this, but I feel like this just has more that just pop and stick in my mind. And Mia Goth in X, I was like, okay, she's interesting. She's got an interesting look. I'm not super familiar with her. She's amazing in this.
Oh, 100%.
Her acting in this is incredible, and it really is kind of what makes the movie. And it's not all on her shoulder. It kind of is. She's the main character, and it follows her for even if there's a large chunk where there's not even other characters around. But the look of the film, like X, is emulating a period. In this case, it's like that very technicolor, bright, colorful, kind of 50s, 40s, 50s era, which is super interesting.
World War II-ish, I think, is where it's
Right. So yeah, that'd be 40s for her.
Yeah, late 40s, early 50s.
So it's interesting to see a horror movie because we've seen the 70s grindhouse thing, the grainy film, the certain kind of color grading, but it's interesting to see a horror film where it's those blues and reds and everything's just super intense and technicolor, and it even has that old school I don't know, the Wind Wizard of Oz sounding score, just the way the strings are. So it emulates that time period, but this is most definitely the subject matter is not something you'd see in one of those movies. And she's a pretty interesting character. I feel like her being old in X is kind of what makes her unique. In this one, it's just, we've gotten character studies of killers and stuff before, but the shy farm girl, but also clearly something's wrong with her and has probably always been wrong with her, and you get glimpses of that. Sometimes you get larger glimpses. Sometimes she makes out with scarecrows. There's just this interesting, she's a unique character, and I feel like that comes across more.
Scarecrows?
Oh, yeah.
I gotta see this movie.
Dude, so for anyone who knows,
I'm afraid where they put the corn cob.
Here's the things. There's I think 3 scenes that stick with me from this movie, and if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Scarecrow, monologue, credits.
Yeah.
Those scenes are the credits are incredible. I'll just say that. Like,
All right.
she's amazing.
I say this also doubles as a pandemic movie because
Ooh,
there was the flu outbreak that took place. So you also see the paranoia of essentially what we just went through of don't accept things from other people right now, and there's people walking around in masks, and you know everything that we just went through in 2020, essentially almost 100 years ago, like to the extent that Pearl's, I think, sister-in-law gave her ham, and it got set out on the porch. And through this movie, and this is what sticks with me, you watch this ham like deteriorate and get like maggot infested, and you just watch this thing decay and just keep rotting. It's like, this is kind of intense.
And it's also not necessarily subtle, but a nice like that is that is Pearl's like mental state degrading.
Yeah.
To the point where eventually it finds its way in the house on the table, and it's just like disgusting. And it's like, yeah, she's gone. She's gone at that point.
Oh, 100%. She went with the ham.
It is. I can't understate like how kind of wild it is in a horror movie that one of the standout scenes for me is a several minutes long monologue that at a certain point the camera just doesn't cut away. Like earlier into her monologue, this is way towards the end of the movie, she has this long monologue, and like maybe once or twice early in the monologue it'll cut to the other person in this, but at a certain point it just holds on her for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. It's well written in that like it's super fascinating insight into a maniac, really, but also it almost works to make you sympathize with her. It's like, oh, I mean, she's clearly a crazy killer, but at the same time, you're like, I kind of understand it. I kind of get like, at least you can kind of sympathize with like, she knows, and she knows something's wrong with her. Doesn't necessarily feel good about that. And the performance is amazing. It just holds on to her for several minutes as she does this monologue, and it's like the standout scene of the movie.
Oh, 100%. Let's jump over to another one of those that I think skates the line between like horror and maybe action movie, and that's Barbarian. It's 100% suspense, but I think there's enough being held captive that helps this become a horror movie. And then when you see the main character, that really flips it. But it definitely rides that line. You know, it's another one of those that rides the line. And it's also kind of a weird movie. Could have added some more story elements. But is this one, Billy, I know you've seen it.
Yes.
Randy, have you seen this one?
I have, yes.
What'd you think?
Billy, you go first. I feel like I've been talking a bit.
I'm a little confused by the action movement that you said. I mean, I certainly don't get, like, Lethal Weapon or anything.
Well, there's a lot of chase scenes.
That's a horror movie! Anyway,
I think
action.
I guess I'm not...
Action might have been wrong. I was thinking maybe more of a drama.
Sure, I mean...
It's also kind of a unique... It's kind of a unique setting. That's...
Yeah.
I think what I like best about it is the setting. And, you know, other movies like It Follows is kind of touched on. It Follows and, what's the other one? With the blind guy? The Intruder in His House, and they made a sequel, which is weird that they made a sequel and he's kind of the main character of that, but
yeah, people are yelling at us right now. Don't see.
Don't see. that's the movie.
I can't remember what it's called, but I like that movie too.
Don't Breathe.
But Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe. That's what it is.
See?
Yeah. the like abandoned Detroit setting is.
Yes, I very.
Yeah.
Very much. What was It Follows in Detroit? I suppose.
they had some bits where it wasn't all in Detroit, but there's a big chunk of the movie where they're kind of rolling.
I
they're
did
looking
not
for the one kid.
Yeah, I did not pick up on that in It Follows. Not that it isn't there. Now that you say it, like, I kind of can, but I definitely was like, oh, this feels so much like Don't Breathe. Just in its setting. And I guess even that, like, it ends up having this secret underground bunker thing. So, basement, whatever. Not that the Don't Breathe it. Whatever, doesn't really matter. Yeah, no, I ended up liking Barbarian. The way that it was explained to me, because as I've said, you know, I have things on trailers, and in most cases, I don't watch them anyway. I'll judge if I'm going to see the movie based on who's in it, who directed, you know, whatever. This one, I knew nothing about it, and, you know, it's probably one that I may have looked at a trailer for. And a couple people said, don't watch the trailer. It is a movie that, like, whatever it portrays in the trailer is not going to be anything like what you see. So I don't really even know how accurate or inaccurate that is, but so I went into this completely blind. Yeah, I ended up enjoying it a lot. You know, the shared Airbnb scenario, like, definitely, you know, starts getting you like, ooh, you know, what's Bill Skarsgård, you know, Pennywise, you know, what's he gonna do? Is he actually is he a good guy like he says? Is he a bad guy? You know, what's going on? You know, and then it cuts to the Justin Long scenes, and it's like a completely different movie at that point. It's like, well, what's this have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Oh, he's Hollywood type guy that owns property. He's renting out this place, so he has to go back. Okay. And even still, it's like, what is it about him? Like, he seems pretty convincing to me anyway. While I'm watching, he's getting caught up in a Me Too thing, and you know, it seems like to me that he may have been innocent. You know, he's like, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm getting canceled from all my stuff because this thing, like, I didn't do this. Like, how do I get it? You know, like, it's a very common thing, you know, going on that's been brought to light in recent. So I was like, okay, well, what's this lead to? Well, this ultimately leads to he's a self-imposed piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, okay, that was kind of a neat way to get there. But, you know, we start to see, like, the flashback stuff, and that this, you know, woman was abducted and, you know, been down there for all these years, and, you know, it starts, you know, de-evolution, I suppose. Child after child after child, all this stuff. Like, I don't know, it definitely ended up being, like, just things I didn't expect, and, again, had no idea that it was going to go to these directions, and I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, this is a movie that I might have checked out the trailer, but it was word of mouth. Like, I kept hearing about this Barbarian, and it was getting high praise, so I went into it, you know, like, virtually nothing. I do like the Justin Long, the double twist, the first twist that, like, oh, this guy's in here, now we're following him, and, like,
yeah,
what? Okay. And then the twist of, like, oh no, he's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of great ideas, and I liked the movie overall.
Yeah.
I will say, and I don't like when characters do stupid things for horror to happen, but I'm a horror fan. Like, I accept it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't remember, it's been a while since I watched this, but this is one of the few movies where the characters did such stupid things sometimes. I was pissed off. It actively made me mad, and at a certain point, Melanie and I were both watching it, and we're both, like, so irritated with these characters that I was like, I don't think I like this. I don't want to watch this. We kept watching it, of course. So it's such this weird, like, angle of, I don't think I've ever had a movie that really, like, hit me so hard that way, in that I gave it a lower star rating on Letterboxd because the characters irritated me so much with some of their decisions.
And I think I know what you're talking about. Stuff like, leaving that basement door open or whatever, like knowing that it was gonna shut, or like, oh, I really shouldn't go further, but I'm going to
do it anyway.
And like, there's no way in hell that you'd like find this like secret passageway and be like, oh, I'm going down there. Like
Right.
Yeah, no, you find a secret passageway.
No.
First thing that pops in your head, but nope.
when Justin Long did it, it was fucking awesome.
Right.
Because he's such. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, in his character, he is exempt from this, but like,
Right.
you find a hidden room in a basement with a disgusting looking mattress and a video camera. You don't then like, well, where's this? Let's follow this further.
Nope.
You get out of there, especially in this scenario.
No, I agree.
Yeah, crazy. But I do like this. Like on paper, I like the story a lot. It's weird. That reveal of the woman down there before we cut to Justin Long was great. And then we're with Justin Long, and the tone's completely different. And it's like, oh, they're doing kind of a modern Psycho thing. Well, we go back to those characters, but yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in this Justin Long's character, like how that plays out at the end. I really like. It's just there's some stuff with the character writing that irritated me so much that it definitely detracted from the film. Otherwise, I don't think it's bad. I think it's unique, and that's definitely good and well.
And it's funny too. Moose and I had to talk about this because I was like, when I was explaining to him, very I don't know, cryptically, I suppose, of like why he should watch it and stuff. And I think like the only thing that I told him as like the only thing that I don't understand about it, and like I had to look up the definition because I'm like, I don't know why the fuck it's called Barbarian. Like, what does that have to do with Conan? Or like He-Man, or like like the thing, the stereotype of what a barbarian is. Apparently, that's not at all like what barbarian like is by definition, which I don't remember. But it very much like made sense. But I'm like, what? Why is it even called Barbarian? What is this?
Interesting. Now that you mention it, I think I did watch the trailer, and I think that the trailer kind of pushed me to want to watch it more because I watched the trailer and I was still like, why is this called Barbarian? That doesn't make any sense. Now I have to watch it. Like, the trailer looked okay, but that with the title, it's like, wait, what? Barbarian?
Yeah.
Okay. I still don't get it.
Paul, are you looking it up?
I want to get the words exactly right. Yeah, give me just a second.
Yeah. It's like, once he explained it to me after looking it up, it's like, oh, okay, I guess that works. Like, barbarian, like, can mean more than just, this
typically
epic warrior.
The more traditional is to be obviously brutal, but it's uncultured, primitives, uncivilized.
Right.
Which, when you get to, I guess, the mama, to a T. I mean, uneducated, everything. Lucky she's wearing a diaper.
I guess that also kind of reflects in the Justin Long cancel culture kind of plot, I guess, a little bit too, if you want to talk about, like...
He's uncouth.
Yeah. Uncivilized in the, like, not... Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, you reach a certain level of stardom in Hollywood, they can start to become uncivilized to a certain degree. They, like with the, like, hey, you're being like investigated on. You can't leave the state. And he's like, what? I'm already in Michigan.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? Like,
I have tiger's blood.
The Vatican assassin. Yeah, they just, like, the conventional rules of civilization doesn't apply to them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
I hope we didn't just, like, think about that title deeper than whoever wrote the screenplay. I feel like they probably had that in mind. But
probably.
Yeah.
I don't think you call a movie like that Barbarian without having those thoughts.
Right.
I don't know. There was another one on this list that I thought about deeper than than what some people have thought about, but it's just how I look at movies. But I'm not ready to get into that one yet.
Okay.
But let's get into one that wrapped up a trilogy.
Okay.
We saw. Let's talk the final installment of Halloween.
Yep.
Ever. Because it ends.
Halloween
There'll never
ends.
be another.
No.
Not from Lionsgate.
Of course not.
Halloween ended in 2022.
This is another one that wasn't contentious at all.
Did you say Lionsgate?
Yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah, it's not.
Yep.
Blumhouse.
Yep.
New Age Lionsgate.
Yep. As soon as it came out, I was like, oh,
It's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
shit happens.
Yep.
A lot to process. Oh, well. Lionsgate probably won't do it either, so it works out. So I'm not technically wrong. I'm just wrong in the sense of who made this movie.
Okay. Anyway.
But talking about Halloween Ends, we get Michael Myers Light, Laurie Strode Light. It's what's interesting is it kind of sets it up for what could be a new franchise, but it's not because it ended, which sucks because it would have been interesting to see where the Halloween the next generation, as it were to take it. But I am more interested to hear what you guys thought, especially you, Billy, knowing where you sit with the Halloween franchise.
Yeah.
So.
It's my least favorite of the new three, but I will say that I enjoyed the deeper meaning of it more than I did the movie itself. And I think something that a lot of people missed from it was society creates its monsters, I think is the larger story being told throughout these. The first one, Michael Myers has been in this psych ward or mental, whatever you want to call it, mental institution, for 35 years or whatever it was. He has essentially been fine. When the podcasters show up with his mask, they kind of start poking the bear a little bit. That's when things start to happen again. That's where the strength comes from. His strength, his power, his evil comes from the power that society gives to him. And the second one, I know people, complained about, like, at the end of the movie, like, the entire town is beating the shit out of him. There's no way that he can overcome this. How is he surviving this? How is he not harmed? It's because that is a lot of power, that these people are giving to him. The third movie, some time has passed. He is weaker. He is dying. The kid, I forget his name, the main guy that starts to make his transition. Tragic event happens. Not really his fault, but he gets blamed for it. Society turns their backs on him. He starts to become, they talk about how, like, Michael Myers, like, transferred the evil to him. Like, and I suppose maybe that's part of it, but, like, Michael Myers was becoming weaker and dying because nobody cared about him anymore. They now cared about this new guy who was now, like, becoming the evil. That, I think, is what the big story being told is. That's the deeper meaning of these movies is, it's what does society do? If I don't really care to use the term of woke, but I think this is more woke in a sense than people would think, and not woke in the sense of, they tried to, put, gay characters or anything like that. Like, woke in the sense of like look at where we are with things, and I know I'm like going on and I'm getting deeper, but look at where we are with we often ask ourselves, like, were things this bad back then? Well, yes, but we didn't hear about it all the time. Now we have social media. Everything is there. We perpetuate everything. The littlest crumb of something gets turned into the biggest thing. We, as society, make it worse. That's what Michael Myers is in all of this. The moment that he's getting forgotten, and that's kind of been told. It's been a story told a little bit with like Freddy Krueger. He's been lying dormant. He needs the town to feed on. He needs people talking about him so he can start going back in their dreams. It's kind of the same thing that's being told here with Michael Myers. He needs the evil of people to build him up to do what he does. And they transferred that over to New Guy. So anyway, agree, disagree?
No, makes sense.
No, yeah. No, yeah, I agree with your assessment of like the things behind it for sure. I would like this movie so much better if Laurie Strode wasn't in it. And that's like it's so interesting because like I feel like they hung it out on like they hung the hat on like the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael, but for me that's like the least interesting thing about this movie. In fact, that kind of ruins what they were doing.
Agreed.
But also, it following Halloween Kills hurts this movie a lot. Because Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills was continuous story. The fact that we don't get Corey Cunningham.
Yeah, there we go, thank you.
The fact that we don't get his character, like, it would help if he even just in the background popped up in the other movies because of how tightly woven the first two movies were.
I agree.
And the way Halloween ended, where, kill off the one lady, he's stronger than ever, and Laurie's good, he's good, she's gonna get him. And then we go into this movie, Laurie could care less. She's trying to move past it. She's moved into town. Michael Myers is rotting in a sewer somewhere. There are definitely some weird like plot points pulled from various Halloween sequels, but I guess kind of all the trilogies did that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But it feels like Halloween Kills, the whole movie was a build-up to something that we didn't, and then it ends. And I kind of cut it slack because I'm like, well, they've had this trilogy planned, right? Like, they did the first one, and then I think before it was even released, they're like, it's going to be a trilogy. Like, it's agreed on. Like, the deal's done. So I was like, okay, I'll cut Kills some slack because the ending of it, because there's going to be another one. This drops, like, all the main threads, like, all the threads. I mean, it's got the carryover characters, and it's like, no, we're going to do this completely other thing. And part of it, and I know it's not necessarily fair to judge a movie based on the sequels or whatever, or your expectations, but I think in this case it's a little fair because of how it was presented and how tightly woven the first two were. You couldn't help but having expectations coming into this. And it's like, we're going to swerve hard right. And that's why I say it coming after Halloween Ends hurts it a little bit. And the Laurie Strode aspect, even though I know that's what people want, or at least that's what the studio's convinced the fans want. Maybe that is what the fans want. But I feel like that also hurts it. Because I think you could do the story of Corey and, a weakened Michael Myers. And even, sure, like, throw the daughter in there. Like, the whole love story. I kind of wish they would have pushed her further into darkness along with Corey. Because I felt like that was interesting. It's like, oh, she's like, he's had a rough time. You get it. You get why he's kind of going this path. And she's obviously had a rough time, but you wouldn't expect her, like, it'd be interesting to almost have her take the anti-Laurie path. Where Laurie's like, I mean, she kind of didn't, like, she's not super good or anything, but she, justice and, like, gotta get Michael eventually. I like the idea of, like, maybe she takes a dark turn.
Almost a Bonnie and Clyde of slashers.
A little bit, to where it's like she really shouldn't, but also you kind of understand why she would.
Yeah.
Her mom was killed. Like, her her boyfriend, her dad, like she lost like everybody. So I kind of wish, but then like once we get into that third act, I mean, I like how they kind of wrapped up Corey's deal, but then it just like derails into Laurie and Michael fighting, and like I feel like the story that the most of this movie is about doesn't, for me, have a satisfying conclusion on its own because it's still tied into the Laurie Michael thing, which feels kind of too separated from the story this movie wants to do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. And I think they felt they could get away with it. And part of it, I agree, because essentially, this is Halloween 3. It's supposed to be a complete left turn. It's supposed to not be the same story anymore.
Right.
But that's all done inside of a still connected story.
Right.
So it's like, I get what you're going for. You went the whole left turn. I love and always have been a fan of Halloween Season of the Witch.
Oh, yeah.
So wanting to go a new route is a fun idea, but you're still also wrapping up ends to conclude your trilogy.
Let's say it's Halloween 3, but with the same issue Halloween 2 had, in that if you cut out most of the movie, you could have thrown it at the end of one movie. So you could have cut out most of this movie, thrown it in at the end of Halloween Kills, and wrapped up the Laurie and Michael story, and still made this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally valid. I think you're right. That would have been. It might have made for a weird trilogy in the way that at least I perceived the trilogy was being pitched to us, but I think it would have made Kills and this movie both stronger.
Yeah.
Because I think there's interesting stuff in this. I think this is one of the better looking of the three.
Oh,
in terms
yeah.
of, like,
I totally agree.
100%.
Yes.
It looks great. I kind of like
Yes.
the mood and the tone it's
Yep.
going for. Yeah, it just has too much baggage.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it does hurt me a little bit to see such a weakness. Like, there's a little bit, but I'm not one of those that's like, you ruined Michael Myers. Like, no, it's fine. It's an interesting thing they're doing. Even like when the scene, and I feel like this scene really bothers people, is when he goes back to the sewer and, he's beats on Michael Myers and takes the mask, even though it might not necessarily make sense. Just like they're like, you're just a man, and he takes the mask, and I was like, that's kind of a powerful scene. I really like it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
The Laurie stuff is just too, like, it's tied in there, but
Yeah.
that's really what bugs me. I said it too many times.
Yeah, like you had mentioned earlier, like, do fans actually want the Laurie thing? Is that what Stu's convinced you of? Man, like, after, Rob Zombie did his, which, at the end of the day, still told the same story as the original. It's the whole family aspect, it's the Strode family, Michael Myers coming from that, Laurie this, Laurie that. Like, once his were done, I was like, cool, give me more Michael Myers. Please just put him out there on Halloween night, killing people. Like, I don't want any more Laurie Strode stuff. I just don't want any more Strode family. And when they announced that Jamie Lee was coming back, I was like, fuck. But then they announced that she's not going to be family, because in that first movie, she wasn't. That was never the plan. I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. It's different. It's not family anymore. But it still went that Laurie Strode.
I think 2018 one handled it perfectly. That's why I was such a fan of that.
Yeah.
Because I was never a big fan of Halloween 2. And I know a lot of people like it. And it's fine as a movie, but I hated the sister. Like, I hated that. Like, it's such a sequelitis thing to do. It's like, you don't need that. It's actually, in my mind, better that she wasn't. She just happened to be there. She came to the house.
And John Carpenter didn't want to do it either.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He needed money.
So
Right.
Fascinating as this is, we will revisit
Don't
Halloween.
you interrupt us.
I'll interrupt if I want to interrupt. I will say we will revisit Halloween on another episode, because I think there's a lot more to discuss. Especially
on every episode.
Every episode is Halloween. It's our version of the Grawlix Doctor Who.
Yep.
But
Sorry,
no,
yes, moving on.
I think there is a lot more to discuss, and especially since the episode that Billy and I way back when. I mean, there's a lot more has come out. So yeah, I think it would be interesting for the three of us to sit down and discuss differences. So, Upside, you guys have a sneak peek at an upcoming episode. Don't know when, don't know where, but well, I know where. It'll be right here. But moving forward, Billy, you mentioned Rob Zombie, and it brings us to where Black and White does work, and it's horror from an unlikely source, and that's Disney Marvel.
Right.
And that's Werewolf by Night. Now, this is one that I'd been excited for, and when the trailer dropped, I was really excited. It's black and white. It had that Hammer and Universal feel, and just that classic monster feel to it. And I, just watching the trailer, I was hoping it wasn't just to get you interested in it. And you sit down to watch it, and no, the whole thing's in black and white, and it throws you back to
not the whole.
Well, not the whole thing, no, but like the majority of the film is just in black and white. It throws you back to like the early days of horror, and I remember watching it, and aside from being a fan of the characters and a Marvel nerd and all that stuff, watching Werewolf by Night, and for the first time in as long as I can remember, I felt like a kid again, sitting down watching, Dracula and Nosferatu, Wolfman, things like that, and it gave you got that feeling of just getting back to your roots and starting out as horror again, and I mean they captured that essence beautifully, and I still get goosebumps talking about it. It's awesome. And it's like the best thing I loved about it. They set out to capture this essence of horror and nailed it.
I didn't know this was happening, and then I think the trailer dropped, and I was oblivious to it until I don't know. I seen mention of it, and I had seen mention of Man Thing, and Man Thing always catches my eye because I'm a huge Swamp Thing fan, and they're not the same, but they're similar characters on different sides of the fences, right?
They're both things.
So it's like they're things, right? And they happen to be created by people who were rooming together at the time and working for separate companies.
I love the story of how it was made.
Right. So that caught my eye, and I was like, okay, I'll check out the trailer. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. This was just delightful but fun. This was such a surprise. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't have a ton to say about it, but this was a very pleasant surprise. I like that it is classic horror, like theme. It's still got a little bit of the action and superhero-y thing because it's Marvel, but also like when it needs to, it's got some edge to it. It's got some bite. There's definitely some kills that surprised me. I was like, oh, Marvel's letting them I don't know, I guess run a little wild with this. And good fun. I really enjoyed it. I would like to see more like this. I wish this was longer, but I feel like it's such a good idea of like, it's basically like a TV special, right? Or a special presentation where it's 45 minutes to an hour long, one off. Here you go. Not quite a movie, not a TV show. Let's explore this character or these characters. And I feel like, I don't know that they're using it this way, but that's also like, it's a good way to test, like, ooh, our audience is going to like this. Well, you're not too invested in it. Just throw it out there. Give it a shot. Also, maybe give it to somebody who's got passion for it. From what I understand, that's what they did. Yeah, let them do something a little different. If it fails,
I forget his name. It's Michael something. He's a composer.
Right. Yeah.
And a really great composer these days too. But yeah, he directed. I guess he's maybe done like a few shorts here and there. I don't recall that he's done anything really of note. So this is like his first like kind of big project from what I understand. And he just knocked it out of the park. Like just a really cool throwback that like, look, it doesn't 100% feel like a movie that came out of 1940 or whatever, but they do a good job of capturing those vibes and making it feel like characters from that time frame, and yeah, it was cool. I'd love to see more like it, and I think it was pretty well received. I don't see why we wouldn't see more like it, and I hope we see more from those characters. We got some Man-Thing out of it that again loved, and a great way to pull it off, and yeah, I hope we see.
Agreed.
Now we go from black and white to a black phone.
Ah.
This one is a little strange at first, but once it gets rolling, it's definitely a solid movie. It's another one of those. It touches on being a capture victim, and it's an escape film with a twist of able to talk to all of the past victims.
Yeah.
Without getting too spoilery, it's a really good concept. I mean, you don't typically, when you see the capture films, it's like, okay, how are they going to get out? Well, in this one, it gets laid out by all the failed attempts, and there's definitely hints of supernatural, and it's. I want to see. I'd like to see a prequel, actually, not a sequel, but a prequel, because I'd like to learn more about Ethan Hawke's character and what made him who he is. Billy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say that there's a ton about it that I have to say. Not that it's particular to this movie, but I love that Ethan Hawke has seemed to have found a cool niche within the horror genre over these last number of years, and yeah, he's doing a great job of playing these very different types of characters, and in this one too, he's multiple personalities depending on which mask he's wearing. I thought that was some pretty cool aspects, and I think the character work of him and the mystery of how is this kid able to talk to all these past failed victims on the phone, I think is just what makes it really interesting to follow. I think the story itself is pretty common, kind of like you said, it's just yeah, he's captured, how does he get out? I think those are a lot of different interesting aspects of how it keeps you interested the whole time to, have an ending that is, again, pretty typical. With, we think it's this house, everything, that the girl is seeing leads to that house. Oh no, it's the one across the street, again, kind of typical, and if it didn't have all these other really interesting elements, it would just seem like a rather obvious kind of movie, but I think all that other stuff kept it so intriguing along the way that maybe some of those weaker points didn't matter as much.
Yeah, I think that whole point I think the point you just hit on is part of why I like it so much, because there's so potential for it to be just a totally run-of-the-mill, if not at times cheesy horror movie. Because on paper, it's okay, I mean, that's not unique, it's not special. But for me, it's something about the execution makes it work. It makes it work, and I really liked it. This is another 70s, set in the 70s movie, kind of pulling a 70s look, but not with the music selections, I can't say they're not drawing your attention to it, but not drawing your attention to it in the way that X does. It's not like a grainy grindhouse thing. It's just got...
It's a vibe.
It's got the vibe, it's the setting, the music a bit, the color grading even, but it's not over the top. It's just that's I don't know, a certain Kodak look in whatever film they were using back in the day. Just got the right color grading, but also Ethan Hawke's character could be horrible. Could just so bad and cheesy, but it kind of works for me. The other thing I think that really helps this is, Ethan Ethan Hawke even kind of plays it over the top. I don't think that's controversial to say. But the kids, I feel like, are the best actors. The two main, the brother sister, like they're great. I thought they did great, and the fact that they're definitely competent actors, and like they're very grounded in this supernatural. Well, even though supernatural things are going on, they feel very grounded.
Yeah.
And I think 4 stars. I really like this one, and part of it is just like, yeah, they nailed that, and it could have gone so wrong, but it didn't. I mean, I don't know how memorable it's going to be of a movie. Like, it's not like an instant classic, but yeah, I really liked it.
So, in an effort to save time, I'm just going to mention a couple movies, and then we'll move on. Now, these two I do plan on talking about in future episodes, and that is the new Hellraiser and Smile, both of which were amazing movies, and I will definitely get into in future episodes. And, of course, I'd say, knockout hit of 2022, and that's Terrifier 2. Talked about that a few months ago. Go back, check out the episode with Michael Levy. Complete spoiler episode. We do a complete deep dive into it. Now, that said, there are also a few scenes of note this year, and we have 3 listed. I'll name them off, and we can decide which one we really want to dig into, because we've almost been here for 2 hours.
Whoa, baby.
Right.
Right.
So, we had Wednesday, the story of Wednesday Addams finding herself. We had Chucky and Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. All 3 were, I'd say, like the biggest horror series of 2022, arguably. Gentlemen, which one would you like to get into today?
Well, I'm so curious about the Cabinet of Curiosities because I haven't seen it. So, there's that.
Can I give you like one sentence on each, and then I'll call it good? Each of those series?
Actually, yeah, you go ahead, and then we'll just jump into our 2023 list. That works for me.
I mean, I'm not good at, I know I'm not, we're not great about keeping this contained. I was amused at your, like, anticipated list in the notes, people. It says about 5 minutes per title, man.
Nope.
Yeah.
I didn't see that note, obviously.
I didn't pay attention to my own notes, so it's okay.
Hell, make it a 2-parter.
Right. In the future, you should, like, consider, let's split these things up. And, like, anyway, Wednesday, I don't know that my expectations were high. I don't think they were. Overall, I liked it. It's not great. It's appropriate for what it is. I hate the casting of the parents. Hate it. And it's, that's it. That's it. Although, Jenna...
Randy's about ready to start going on and goes, oh, yeah. I just don't like it. Moving on.
I didn't say it wasn't going to be an extremely long run-on sentence. Chucky continues to be a delight. I'm so glad this franchise continues on in series form. It's so good. There's so many fun minimums. That's all I'll say about it. Cabinet of Curiosities. Horror anthology. This might be, though, my favorite horror series of the year, and it's kind of a surprise. I mean, I was expecting to like it, but horror anthologies can be very hit or miss, and I feel like this may be the most consistent horror anthology series I've seen in that, like, in terms of quality. I feel like the first episode's maybe the low point, and then it's just, and it's not bad, and then it's just up from there. And there's some weird stuff in some of those episodes, like the guy that did Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow. His episode is wild, but
see, I'm even more intrigued now.
Oh, you gotta check if you like his stuff. You gotta check that out. But it feels like they gave quite a bit of budget to each episode, chose unique filmmakers, and just like, do your thing. So it's very stylized.
I love that.
Mini movies, they're very good.
Yep. Yeah. Said didn't see that one. Just can't really comment on it. Chucky, loving what they're doing with it. Always willing to have fun and take risks. Sometimes those risks don't pan out the way that you want. There be previous movies or whatever, but it's risks that they're having fun with. And then, Wednesday, my gosh, did Jenna Ortega just,
killed
become
it.
this role. In the opposite direction, I actually don't mind the parent selection. It is not what we've grown to expect from these movies.
Right.
It's hard to top what we've had in previous movies. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really completely, totally matters about the parents or not, because it's all Wednesday's story for now, and she kills it. So that's my thoughts on those. All right, what are we talking about now?
And now we look to the future.
Got it.
But since we are in 2023, I guess the future is now.
It's true.
So
I've got the Bloody Disgusting list pulled up.
what are we looking forward to seeing this year? Now, I will say that this year is already off to a killer start. I mean, Megan is tearing up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have not seen it yet. I've heard only great things about it, and I've been interested.
As I say, I plan on renting it within the next. So, yeah, I mean, it's just killing it with the numbers. So, 2023 is already off to an amazing.
I feel like maybe I'm not, I don't know. Maybe I'm confused about Skinamarink. I've still not seen it. I hear a mixed bag of things. Some people are like, oh my god, it's the most boring thing I've ever seen. Other people are like, this is a great art house horror movie. I don't know. I think the thing I'm most confused about, have either of you seen it?
No, I've got it added to my list on Shudder, so I will see it, but I have not yet.
I thought that this was going to be like another one of those, the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. I thought it was going to be Skinnamarink Dinky Dink. Like
Cheryl
a
Lewis
horror
and Bram's
movie,
Elephant Show.
Right, that's so, and from the things that I've been hearing, I'm like, I don't think that's it at all. So, I feel like, in that regard, I might be extremely disappointed.
I'd watch that. Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink, you die.
Exactly. I kill you. I don't know what Infinity Pool is, but this image looks cool with these masks.
Infinity Pool, that's going to be one of mine. That's Cronenberg's son, Brandon Cronenberg. I think I understand.
And
he's kind of following the footprints a little.
Cronenberg's follow-up to Possessor will star Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth. I mean, I'm pretty sold.
I'd say those names alone, you got me.
But it's a follow-up to Possessor, whatever that is.
I did watch the trailer, and the trailer kind of gives a bit away, but also it seems like the kind of movie where you can't give too much away in the trailer. Like, it looks pretty bizarre.
Okay.
And from what I understand, it's rather disturbing, so I'm very curious about
interesting. So, not going to get into all the talk anymore, but part of why talking about M. Night Shyamalan so much earlier, I'm looking forward to Knock at the Cabin.
Yes.
I'm still in the M. Night game. I enjoy, like I said, these last few movies I've really enjoyed, and I really enjoy Batista as an actor. So again, I haven't seen a trailer. I see he's in it. See, it's an M. Night movie, and it has something to do with being in a cabin. I'm like, all right, I'm sold. I'll watch it.
Oh, 100%.
I'll jump in with my other two. Wait, did you get a... Billy, did you get a one?
I'm kind of just going down the list of what I see here.
I think I know one of Randy's.
Oh, I think you definitely do. I'll lead though with Beau is Afraid. I don't know what this is gonna be, but Billy mentioned Ari Aster earlier, and this is his next movie, and it kind of doesn't look like a horror movie. I did watch the trailer. Again, I feel like you're gonna be more confused if you watch the trailer, so that's a good trailer in my mind. But it looks like a weird, eccentric comedy, but then it kind of looks like a nightmare. So, like, it's got a Joaquin Phoenix, and it looks so bizarre. The description on Letterboxd is described as a zonky nightmare. So, I'm very curious about that. And then
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Evil Dead Rise, then, of course, is my excited for. Cautiously, I didn't hate when they did the kind of reboot.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff I don't love about it, but, like, man, so much, like, The end of that, like, there's a lot of good stuff in that. The end of that movie is amazing. So
Yeah, I like it a lot. And
I'm kind of
I haven't watched
surprised
the trailer,
Renfield
but-
wasn't on that list.
God, about it existing.
I say
Yeah.
knowing your love for Cage.
You know, I've still come around on Cage. He's just got to be in the right stuff.
100%.
Fit Cage. Cage doesn't fit your movie. Your movie has to fit him.
Over the last number of, you're right.
Yeah.
Over the last number of years, filmmakers have figured out, like, don't just put him in your random ass movie. Like, build a movie around his eccentricities. Is that how you say that?
Sounds right.
Something like
Sounds
that.
good.
And yeah, you do that, and you're in for something pretty. Might still not be your cup of tea,
Right.
but, I don't know, like, keep hearing about this cocaine bear, that sounds crazy.
I say, and then obviously Winnie the Pooh.
Yep,
That's probably one of the most talked about ones because it's Winnie the Pooh. It's horror.
yes.
There's a lot of possibilities.
I just went and saw Ant-Man, and before that, they played a trailer for this movie called. And now, this is a movie I don't know that I would have known anything else about unless I heard secondhand. It's called 65. Sam Raimi joins forces with the writers of A Quiet Place. It has Adam Driver in it, and it's how did they advertise it? Is past meets future. So like, it takes place in the future. It's got futuristic like guns and like weaponry and like laser type stuff, and they somehow like go to this different planet or time period, and they're fighting dinosaurs. And now that might sound a little odd, but I suppose I would say maybe check out the trailer. Like it's played like serious. Looked really cool to me. So definitely interested in that. Renfield, sure. Evil Dead, yeah.
There's another Dracula film coming out, but it's not Dracula.
Okay.
It's The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And it's an adaptation of the Captain's Log, the chapter from Dracula. And, you know, it's Andre Avradal is the director. Stars Corey Hawking, Aisling Francioli, Liam Cunningham, and David Dismalchin. It's, you know, Viggo Mortensen's in it. So yeah, it's Jude Law's in it. It should be a really good movie. It's set to come out in August, I think.
Nice.
But yeah, they adapted it. It's just one chapter of Dracula they turned into a movie.
All right.
So it should be fun.
And yeah, you got your modern classics. A new Insidious is coming.
Nun 2.
Saw.
I'll say, yeah, there's Saw X.
Ghostbusters.
Yep. And then, of course, Scream.
Yep.
I mean, next year's going to have to be a two-parter. There's a lot coming out.
I mean, this year probably should have been a two.
Probably. Yeah. And then Maxine will be coming out.
I said Maxine to, you know, finish out the Ty West trilogy. Live and learn, then get loves.
Yeah, no, that was fun. It was fun to reminisce about last year, where I feel like I've slowed down in the amount of movies that I've watched. I still feel like I was able to contribute a bit to this list, so that was fun.
Well, we've all had busy years.
Oh, yeah. So
I kind of made a point to ramp up my movie watching this last year, and oddly enough.
You ramped up, we ramped down.
See, I purposely, like, these last couple years, it's like, I need to scale back from the 400 movies I watch in a year.
Oh, no, yeah, see, I think mine kind of dwindled down just because, like, so many series and stuff I was watching instead.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
I've been making a point. But, dude, it has been a solid year for horror, because looking over the ones I've watched, we didn't even, like, Menu and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I liked The Menu.
Yeah.
A nice little movie.
There's a good chunk of movies that I threw 4 and 5 star, between 4 to 5 star ratings.
Wow.
On Letterboxd this year.
Very cool.
And
They say there's so many that, you know, just we couldn't cover.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That,
there's too much.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yep.
Between mainstream, indie, a lot of good stuff coming out. And a lot of times you don't even have to look for it. It's just
Yep.
there.
Yep.
It's a good time for horror.
Yep. All right.
Let's start with Randy, because I think your list is shorter. Randy, where can listeners find you and Grolix and everything?
Okay, well, of course, electronicmediacollective.com. I'm a little slow to update it these days, but I do still update it. If you want to hear me talk about, well, it used to be comic books. It's occasionally comic books, but mostly movies and TV shows. GroggsPodcast.com. We do live streams a week. They don't always hit the audio podcast.
Your weekly
Tune in
pop
for a
culture
live stream.
destination.
Yep. And then I just released a music album. I would say my style these days is 90% metal, 10% synth. Used to do synthwave. It's pushed pretty hard into more metal territory now. But I just released an album called Tooth and Claw. The artist title is Super Science. Go to superscience.xyz. Whatever, but
I like it.
XYZ. And that's what I got going on.
I have a wrestling collectible podcast adjacent to the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, if you're familiar with that. I run a show called The Major World Order, part of their network. And then Moose and I have a podcast called the Zubilee Zoo podcast. If you are into a very specific children's show from the 1980s, alongside the actor Michael B. Moynihan, who played Lookout Bear on the show. We do a deep dive into every episode. You can check that out on Facebook, any of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at ZuzuPod, or you can listen to it on, Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, or electronicmedia.com/ZooPod, or since this is a horror podcast, I do have a band called Graveyard Smash. You can listen to its music. It is horror punk. The best way to describe it is in line with the Misfits, and you can listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, Apple, Amazon, all that, just for Graveyard Smash. And you can search for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Graveyard Smash 13. So that would be my stuff.
On that note, we do want to offer our condolences on the loss of lead singer. And listeners, as always, those links will be in the episode description. And as Randy mentioned, you can find me and other great podcasters over at electronicmediacollective.com. Or if you're just looking for me, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Moose Media Inc. And join us again here in a few weeks where Billy returns for the lost episode of Moose's Monster Mash. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure doing this again. And
that episode will be Leprechaun related, by the way.
Go figure. And we will start planning on when we're going to do that Halloween deep dive. So
you know what you could do? Take our first episode where we went over the whole series and then just take what we talked about in this and just add it on to the episode done.
Edited.
Yeah, if we did another episode, it probably would tread a lot of the same.
Yeah.
But this has been fun. Look forward to doing it again. And until next time, Horror Hounds, mash on.
This has been Moose's Monster Mash. Come back for more chills and thrills if you dare.